Okay, so we're supposed to answer two questions. How do we know what proficient looks like, and then how do we communicate that to students? And per usual, I did something a little bit different in my thinking, but I'm just trying to wrap my head around all of this and what this all means. So when I thought about what proficient looks like, I thought about Maya Wilson's book, Rethinking Rubrics, and also how I don't really use rubrics for writing pieces in my own practice. I do have standards. I break down the Common Core standards and I put it in student-friendly language, and I call them learning targets. So I'll put the standard and then I'll break that down into what it looks like. So if it says that, you can form an argument, then mine, if that's the Common Core standard, then under that I'll say, you have a clear arguable thesis statement. You have supported it with specific examples from the book or from life or from observations or whatever the assignment is that it fits. So I guess I define proficiency differently for, number one, every assignment, because I like to think that my assignments spiral up on each other. So we start with a baseline paper, and then every paper I explain to the students, I'm expecting more and more and more. So proficiency looks different on every assignment. And also, really, for me, proficiency looks different for every single student because they start out at different places. And I guess that's why I don't use rubrics, because to me it feels like you're blocking the students into these little tiny check boxes that you just check off, and not every student is going to fit into that checkbox, and sometimes they do things that aren't on the rubric but that are really good, or sometimes they do things that are on the rubric but aren't done well, but then they do something else really well, so the paper is still proficient even if... So for me right now, I guess how I would define proficiency is that it looks different for every student and every assignment. And I define that for my students by talking about what my expectations are, by showing examples and models, and then by working with them in workshop time to help them get to that place where they are proficient on their own. But I also read a bunch of articles that had been posted in response to the writing revolution that was in the Atlantic, and really, I was just getting on board with the Common Core standards and really going, okay, I think that this is kind of a place that I can go. And then I read these articles and David Coleman's quotes in his commentary, and I'm just so not with him on this at all, because everything that he says and the reason that he's creating the Common Core goes against my training with the main writing project, and that's something that I really do believe in and I've worked a lot on. So in the Writing Revolution, he says that the new writing standards in the Common Core are meant to reverse a pedagogical pendulum that has swung too far, favoring self-expression and emotion over lucid communication. And then he says, as you grow up in this world, you realize people really don't give a shit about what you feel or what you think. And I just think he's really so far off there. And I think that the reason that he's so far off is because he's not paying attention to what's going on in our culture right now, and the fact that our culture is shifting, and students are online, and students do have digital footprints, and they are writing for people who want to read their expressive works. And I think that's an okay place to be, and I don't think that just because you're writing that way doesn't mean that your communication isn't lucid. I just think that that's really ridiculous that he isn't able to see that creative writing has to also have the lucid moments in it in order to be good writing. And in the article, A Passionate, Unapologetic Plea for Creative Writing in Schools, also in the Atlantic, I think they really, for that one, it really hit the nail on the head for me. And also this one, I guess, was a little bit biased towards how I already feel. So, of course, I kind of connected with this one. But it says, David Coleman, who is a cynical architect of the new curriculum that will be imposed on public schools in 46 states over the next 2 years, is trying to reverse that educational trend that favors self-expression. But skilled teachers of creative genres have always known that all good writing requires lucid communication. It is impossible to teach any form of writing without applying and celebrating analytic concepts and mechanical precision. And I just really take issue with the fact that he doesn't recognize that. And that doesn't mean that all I'm doing in my classes is writing poetry and what some of the other articles called fluffy writing, which I just think is so ridiculous. because I think it's also really important that students can write an analytical essay and really build upon an argument. But I also think that it's really important that they are able to write in many different forms and many different genres, because the reality is once they leave my classroom or once they leave high school, and maybe, go to college or don't go to college, depending on what they're majoring in, but they might not ever write an analytical essay over The Great Gatsby again. And is it really important that they're able to do that? And again, I don't have the answer to that question, but I do think it's important that they're able to build arguments. And so I will continue assigning those raft assignments where they choose a role to take on in an audience and a form and a topic, and they can write their creative letters demonstrating what they know in different ways, because I think that's so important that we help students nurture their creativity. And also to be able to build up those arguments. Of course, that's really important, but I think they need to do it in a multitude of ways. And I'm over my time limit already. Okay, so thank you.